My name is Attorney Broderick Brown. I'm a licensed attorney here in the state of California, and today I want to react to one of my initial videos on Deshaun Watson, his civil settlement, and let's determine today what I got right and what I got wrong. So we're going to look at parts of the video, and then we're going to go into the comments. Let's get into it. First of all, my hair here, I've been growing out my hair since COVID. So right now I have it in a 2-strand twist, and there was a little natural. It was a little uneven fro. And definitely my hair definitely had better days than that. But we're here for the content. Let's get into it.
Long story short is, in my opinion, given the nature of the allegations, which are sexual assault, in a couple of cases, women are alleging that he forced them to perform sexual acts on him. You got a guaranteed contract for 40-something million, and you're arguing over $100,000 or $50,000, which is significantly less than a game check. The reality of it is, now that there's, in my opinion, and I said this a month ago, that he's not playing next season. He's going to be put on a list, or he's going to be suspended, but he's not going to play football next season.
All right, I was 100% right about that. Deshaun Watson didn't play football this last season, and it was even worse for him because he was neither placed on a commissioner's list nor was he suspended, and now he's facing the possibility of he's already been suspended, but he's going to have to serve his suspension this year rather than serving his suspension last year. It's actually worked out worse for him than I even thought.
And there's a possibility that his career may be over.
Real quick, according to reports, the NFL right now is seeking, via their appeal, an indefinite suspension. And while I don't think his career is going to be over, it's not clear that if the NFL prevails on their appeal that he's not suspended more than a year. Because in addition to the suspension, the NFL is seeking that is demanding that he seek some sort of help. And so if they don't feel like he's if they don't feel like he's been rehabilitated, there's a possibility that his suspension can go into next season, which is obviously worse for Mr. Watson.
I think that he needs to settle these lawsuits today, because these aren't cases that he's not going to trial on 22 times. He's not going to trial 22 times. It's impossible. And even if he were to go to trial 22 times, in the climate that we're in, he can't afford to lose any one of those trials.
So, the reason why I believed he should have settled the case back in May is that as long as those civil settlements were out there, the likelihood that the NFL was going to take action was going to be slim. And in my opinion, the sooner he settled those cases, the sooner he could have moved on with the rest of his career and finding out whatever suspension is going to be handed to him, that all can get worked out. Instead, what he ended up doing was, initially he came out and said that, look, I'm going to fight this. We're going to get our day in court. I knew that was bullshit. I knew that they weren't going to defend 22 trials. It just didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense. Now, instead what he did was he kind of like played it in the middle. Instead of settling it immediate back in May, they did written discovery. He sat for at least a couple of depositions from what I've seen, where he was taking the fifth to some of the answers, which is like never ideal. And then he still settled the cases. So like in my opinion, he should have gotten in the room and they should have went to the mediation, and I think he should have paid whatever it needed to take to get the cases settled back in the spring of 2021. But let's continue with the video.
It makes no sense for him to be fighting. This is the bottom line. It makes no sense for you to give a deposition and then settle after you give a deposition short of trial. Meaning, the way the civil litigation process happens is you file the lawsuit, there's the written discovery phase, both sides are obtaining information, and then there's a deposition, and then there's a trial. Generally speaking, that's a fast way. Now, there may be a mediation at some point before the deposition or after the deposition, but before the trial. But the bottom line is that, in my opinion, I don't see this is a case that he's not going to go and go in front of 22 separate juries. And if you're not prepared to go in front of 22 separate juries, you might as well settle before any information comes up.
And keep in mind, I think that the civil lawsuits went up to 24. But at the time of this video, it was only 22.
Because he can justify a settlement even if he didn't do it, just because it allows him to clear his name and it'll allow him to possibly avoid future criminal charges, and it would allow him to get back on the field sooner rather than later.
All right, so that's where a part that I was wrong, because it turned out that they did the grand jury investigation and the grand jury didn't indict him. And now, I'm not a huge fan of grand juries. I think that a lot of times local district attorneys use grand juries as a way of not having to make a decision to charge or not charge someone. And because grand juries aren't public in nature, we never know like how the information is being presented to the grand jury and whether the DA is really pushing for charges. But nonetheless, he didn't face criminal charges after the district attorney, after law enforcement and the district attorney presented the case to the grand jury. So I was definitely wrong about that.
Now the NFL may still punish him, but if he loses, in my opinion, his punishment will be much harder. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I'm going to be giving more comments.
All right, so let's get down into the comments. I think these comments were good. This was heated. This is one of my more commented videos. 34 comments here. One of the things, and this kind of gets to it, where this guy, Zach Meir, didn't think that Tony Busby would take 50%. Now, keep in mind, the initial settlement demand for the first accuser was only $100,000. And again, $100,000 was less than one of his game checks, significantly less than a game check. And so, one of the things I think that would help Deshaun is making the settlement values public. I think that if we had that information, we would be able to assess whether or not there was any validity to some of these claims, because they could have had a confidential settlement where the settlement was $10,000, or it could have been a confidential settlement where each plaintiff or the massage therapist was getting $250,000. We don't know. But obviously, if it was announced that they settled the cases and he only paid each massage therapist $50,000, that really helps his case versus everyone hearing that he was paying $250,000. But nonetheless, I think that sharing that information and being more transparent may help him in the eyes of the public. Because even if he settled it for like $350,000, $400,000, $500,000, he can legitimately justify that because he was probably going to spend that amount of money in attorney's fees alone. And so, if you're going to spend that, you might as well spend it up front and not on the back end or doing civil appeals, etc. So I think that he made a mistake by not having the settlement amounts disclosed. And I think initially when I read on ProFootballTalk.com, I think Mike Florio wrote it, it was that the plaintiffs were pushing for a confidentiality settlement initially. I know that Mr. Busby disputed that, but in my opinion, Mr. Watson should have pushed for that because I think it could have helped him now that he's facing the suspension from the NFL. Let me react to this. He said Busby overplayed his hand. I don't think Busby overplayed his hand. Not only did Deshaun Watson settle with all his clients, that Busby filed a lawsuit against the Texans, and the Texans settled with all his clients. And that, to me, gives some legitimacy in terms of something went on. And the Texans were right to settle with everybody is because it makes no sense for you to... it makes no sense to me for someone to go through the discovery process, send over written information, send over documents, have one of their employees sit for a deposition, and then settle the case. You might as well try to settle the case on the front end without having to do all that, without having to expose potentially more incriminating documents to the plaintiffs. And clearly, that's what they did, because they didn't just settle the case with the one woman who filed a lawsuit. They settled with all, I think they settled with more than 24. They settled with, I think, 27. But I could be wrong on that. But I know for sure they settled with more than had filed a lawsuit against Mr. Watson. Which also suggests that there's more lawsuits that Mr. Watson may be facing in the future. XST Media, he could have settled them for $3 million. I mean, even if he did $5 million, he should have done it. Because the reality is, he got the bag from the Cleveland Browns, and he got 9 figures in guaranteed money. Again, this is all peanuts to him. So Zach's commenting again. See, the public opinion was going to be against him at the end of the day due to the nature of the charges and the volume and the quantity of the people that were making the allegations. I personally believe the massage therapist. I believe that Mr. Watson has something wrong, or he's dealing with some issue that would cause him, by his own attorney's admission, to seek massage therapy from 64 different massage therapists in the Houston area within a 17-month period. That's odd behavior. And this is someone who has a massage therapist available to him at his place of work. So it's just odd behavior, and I don't believe that 24 women are lying. I just don't. So this is a comment about extortion. This is clearly not extortion. Extortion is someone threatening, if you don't pay me, I'm gonna go to the cops. That's not what Mr. Busby's initial demand letter said. So this wouldn't qualify as extortion. All right, so I think that's it for the breakdown. I appreciate everyone who made this comment. I think at this point, I think the NFL is going to try to suspend him for the entirety of this year. And to me, it would be justified given the circumstances. The one thing, let me look at my notes here. The one thing that I think that I also got wrong was I didn't think that he would get the huge bag. But the fact that he got the huge bag, the way it was worded, the way the money was distributed, I think that all things considered, I mean, he made out well. And again, it just goes back to my initial point, was that he got extremely bad advice not settling that first case for $100,000. If he had settled that first case for $100,000, there's a strong likelihood that there might not have been a second or third, fourth case, because no one would have heard about it. He could have insisted on a non-disclosure agreement. He didn't even make a counteroffer. That's crazy. He didn't make a counteroffer. So he didn't even know what Mr. Busby's client was willing to accept. And he knew, and he should have been honest with his team. He knew that he had went to 67 different massage therapists in a 17-month period. He knew that. And only he knew what was going on in those massage therapy sessions. So, anyway, like and subscribe. Put your city and state in the chat if you make a comment. I appreciate you if you got this far. And until next time.